Afternoon. My name is Lisa Dazel. I'm from the Unisa Directorate for Counselling and Career Development. A very warm welcome to all of you who have joined us this afternoon. We will just have a few announcements before we start with our program. I'm so sorry, I just need to get to my presentation. So the announcements are that you will note that your microphones and your cameras are currently disabled, but we will enable these during our live Q&A session. We do, however, encourage you to post any questions or comments or thoughts that you have either in the chat or the Q&A on Teams as you are listening to the presentation. This afternoon, we are talking about very important stuff around navigating the skills revolution. What are some of the steps that we can start taking to future-proof our career, especially in this fast-changing world of work? We are recording the session, so after we end off this afternoon, it will be available in Teams. If you have registered for the session, you will also receive an email with a link to the recording. So on that note, I see that there are some people taking notes with AI. I don't fundamentally have a problem with it, but please be assured that the recording will be available afterwards for you to go and view. So on that note, I'm going to invite my colleague, Mrs. Mandu Makanya, if you could please introduce our speaker to us.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will be introducing our speaker for today. And it is a great honor to introduce our distinguished guest speaker for today. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a visionary leader who spans corporate strategy, leadership development, and social impact. He currently serves as the head of organizational development previously in his career. He served as an organizational development. I'm so sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I had a tongue twist there. Sorry, forgive me. Currently serves as the head of organizational development at Humulani Limited in Pietermaritzburg, where he leads strategic initiatives in talent management, workforce planning, and organizational transformation. Before this, he spent over 9 years as chief operations and people officer at Sapumnoto Group Holdings, gaining extensive experience across consulting, retail, manufacturing, and corporate leadership. He holds a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology from the University of South Africa and is a certified practitioner of the globally recognized leadership circle profile known as LCP. In 2015, his outstanding contributions to human capital were recognized when he received a prestigious Standard Rising Star Award. Beyond this, his executive roles, ladies and gentlemen, our speaker is committed to advancing higher education and youth development. He serves on the advisory board committee for industrial and organizational psychology at Unisa, playing a key role in aligning academic programs with workforce realities. His passion for graduate development, talent strategy, and leadership mentoring continues to inspire young professionals navigating today's complex career landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, our speaker is also an award-winning gospel artist. Through his independent music label, he writes, records, and publishes music that uplifts and inspires, earning accolades such as the Crown Gospel Music Award for the Best Song and Best Newcomer. A firm believer in holistic well-being, he exemplifies how health, learning, leadership, and creativity can work together to shape impactful and purpose-driven lives. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming a transformational leader, creative force, and advocate to empowered futures onto our Unisa virtual stage. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Ronnie Mulaudzi. Thank you. Lisa, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mandu. Ronnie, the floor is yours.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. and good afternoon. I hope my volume is clear and that my sound is okay.
It's perfect, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the invitation and for the warm welcome and for the introduction. You know, sometimes when these things are being read, one wonders if they're talking about you. But thank you very much indeed. It's always been a great pleasure being on the Unisa platform. I'm grateful to be back here. It's been a couple of years, I think, of us working together as I changed roles from one organization to the next, and so I'm very pleased and proud to contribute to this platform. I'm hoping that the talk today is going to inspire somebody, shed some light on some of the developments that we're seeing when it comes to careers, when it comes to talent management, what graduate employers are looking at in terms of skills, and what are some of the challenges globally and also in South Africa for young professionals or young graduates to be aware of. So our agenda today will cover a few topics, the South African talent trends versus what's happening globally, higher education versus what the labor market requirements are. And unfortunately, to some extent, we're still seeing a misalignment there, which is why our contribution on the Unisa Industrial and Organizational Psychology Board is quite meaningful. We're able then to say to the academics, you are producing graduates that look like this, but the labor market, though, is looking for a graduate that looks like that. And so there's a misalignment somewhere, and let's see how we can assist to close those gaps. So we'll cover that, and then we'll also look at what are some of the essential 21st century workplace skills. The title of my talk is essentially, the skills revolution, because I think we have moved quite significantly from how we look at careers in the traditional form of things, and we're looking more now at skills. And one of the key challenges is that employers are looking for graduates that are going to be that are going to have a shorter period to effectiveness in a job than those that are going to take long to learn the ropes and to start adding meaningful value to the organization. And so that then begs the question of if I come there with my degree in a particular field, do I have an added advantage or do I not? Because ultimately what employers are looking for is effectiveness of a person, which is driven by skills, and hence I believe it's a skills revolution that we're in at the moment. And then we'll do some synthesis and conclusion, and hopefully by that time have a discussion around any questions or comments that you might want to make in the process. If we just take a bit of a look down memory lane and the skills revolution timeline, what you'll remember is in the early 2000s, we had traditional 9-to-5 jobs, linear careers offered by companies. So you start as a clerk or as an administrator, you go and become a coordinator, you then go on to become a specialist, and maybe then, move into first line management, middle management, senior management. So very linear and driven by the company's structure. And very traditional in that sense. And then in the 2010s, around the World Cup, you'll remember that there was a rise in the gig economy and flexible work arrangements. And younger people started to recognize that, they can actually get more if they're not full-time tied up in a permanent contract with an employer. And so they can do, a number of jobs and occupy a number of roles and work for multiple employers as independent contractors or freelancers. And so especially in the digital media marketing and IT space. A lot of the gig economy arose around that time. And then the 2020s, that's around COVID. COVID fast-tracked a lot of how we look at employment, at the world of work. And fast-tracked, I think probably COVID shortened 15 to 20 years of evolution in how we look at work. And we started to see that actually we can be effective as a company even if we're working from home. And so hybrid work models are now the norm for most companies who never actually went back to the traditional way of looking at employment. Remote work, essentially when you're competing in the world of work since COVID, you are competing literally with the whole world because companies can employ anyone from anywhere around the world, and they don't have to have offices or an address. A good example, I've got a new OD specialist who started in my team last month. She was working for a Spanish company that does training. Never went to Spain, never had to get a work visa, never had to be relocated, but worked with this Spanish training company, for 4 years, and again just shows you that the world has become a lot more flatter and a lot more closer than what we actually think. And so we are now in the 2025s. It is really a skills revolution, skills-based hiring, continuous learning, and dealing with global talent pools, as I've said. And so my advice to anyone listening today is look at your career as a portfolio. And the question you should ask yourself is not what qualification do I have? The qualification shows us or indicates to us that you can learn, you've got the capacity to learn, learning agility is there. But what really is more important is if you look at your portfolio and your arsenal of skills, how does it look like? What knowledge do you have? What skills, technical, soft skills do you have? What other attributes do you bring into the world of work that's going to give you that competitive advantage? And so if we look at South Africa, in comparison to the global context, we know the unemployment crisis is completely out of hand. 32.9% of people unemployed in Q1 of this year. Youth unemployment even higher at 46.1%. And if we look at the global comparison, South Africa has one of the world's highest unemployment rates, particularly amongst the youth aged 15 to 24. And if you look at our labor force size, 25 million people in the labor force, with 16.8 million of those employed. And then we've got a huge burden on social grants that are being distributed to millions and millions of people in South Africa. That is not sustainable at all, which means we're a social state and we are not industrializing it fast enough to create enough employment for everyone. And if you look at the economic growth challenge, we need at least 2% annual growth in the country to stop unemployment rising. Currently, we're only growing at around 0.08%, which really is a cause for great concern for all of us. If we look at employer trends and challenges, skill shortages, or the paradox of skill shortage in South Africa. So you've got 72% of employers struggling to find skilled candidates. But we know that we're producing a lot of graduates every year from all sorts of institutions, TVET colleges, University of Technology, the traditional universities, private institutions, etc. But employers are still struggling to find employees or candidates that have got the right skill set that is required in the place of work. Some employers are even going as revolutionary as reducing the weighting, not completely eliminating. I know eliminating is quite a strong word, but reducing the weighting in the hiring process of a degree, qualification, or and all of that, And what they're doing is, yes, you've got the degree, then you've got, we can hear you out, you've got the foot in the door, but we're still going to conduct a number of workplace or work-based assessments to test how quickly you are going to be able to start contributing and adding value to us as your new employer. If we look at learning and development gaps, only 28% of South African employers help employees build skills versus 83% globally. And so that's quite important. So what this means is what the employers are expecting now is that you're going to come with your arsenal of skills, of knowledge, of competencies, of attributes, bringing yourself as well, a great personality, a great attitude, a teachable spirit, a growth mindset. So they're expecting that as a new employee candidate, that you come into the picture with a whole host of that. And what they do is just, complement that in line with their strategic objectives. Brain drain remains a factor that we look at. By 2020, almost 1 million people, South Africans, were resettled elsewhere outside of the country, which means we are losing some of that talent and that skill set. Global talent migration trends. And this is important because we are in the digital space and mobility is quite high. If I look at some of the skills we look at Hulaman, where I work, we need artisans, and artisans are not necessarily in the most, for lack of a better word, sexy professions that are office-based. They are quite industrial. They're quite shop floor, blue collar, if you can even use that term. But those skills are so mobile globally that we've got a serious challenge, attracting highly skilled artisans, fitters, mechanicians, millwrights, boiler makers, and the rest, electricians, etc. Those skills we need desperately in the country in support of our own development goals, etc. But you find that younger people don't see those as viable career paths, and those skills are quite globally mobile. And so you'll see that a lot of young people under the age of 30 are willing to relocate abroad. And that means that we have a very serious competitive talent competitive space as South African employers. And so, no longer finding people as committed to remaining geographically bound as we used to find before. And so the global competition for skills is incredibly high, and we have to think around how we attract, how our employer brands as organizations, how they appear out in the job market, and what our employee value proposition is. Again, the gig economy is still quite a rife thing. Platforms like Uber, Airbnb, globally create, opportunities that, previously weren't there, where you can literally become your own employer, and you are a business person, but, you are running your own business and still able to make a decent enough living. So what does this all mean for young people, young professionals? High unemployment creates opportunity for skilled professionals, and I'm using the word skilled because not necessarily qualified, but skilled professionals who can differentiate themselves. Your skills can be portable internationally, but local opportunities also exist in transformation sectors like IT, data, renewable energy, and the likes. And so when you've got a skills shortage, then the people that have the skills then attract a premium for their skills, and they're able to demand more and get more from their employers. But also it helps you strategically position yourself. So understanding these trends globally and locally, you're able then to say, okay, where is the high demand and the skills areas where there's high demand versus where there is low supply. And you're able then to say, okay, let me do that. You might have your qualification. That's great. That gives you an ear. It gives you the foot in the door. But you need to be able to say, okay, in my sector and what I studied for, what supplementary skills can I go and get myself trained in so that I'm more competitive. And now quickly just looking at, higher education versus labor market alignment. If we look at university participation, only 8% of people aged 15 to 24 years old attend university or college, with even fewer reaching graduation, especially in the technical, engineering, medicine, finance fields. 11.7% unemployment rate for graduates in Q1 in South Africa of this year, compared to 34.9% for high school graduates. So we have a lot more people leaving high school than those graduating out of university. And the dropout rates are also 20 to 25%, especially in the technical fields. So it means that we have an oversupply in the market of graduates that are not in high demand roles. And so recently, if you look at graduate status and stats, more than 9% of university graduates are unemployed. And this is by the end of Q2 of 2024, and with 23% of those with other tertiary qualifications, unemployed. So the skills gap is there, and we need to really make sure that we encourage people that are entering into university to really do proper research into the high demand fields of study that they need to go and pursue. If we look at enrollment or market demand versus the field of study that we see people enrolling in, highest enrollment is in business, it's in economics and commerce, and then followed by education and engineering. Engineering talent in South Africa is very, very low in comparison with other jurisdictions. So in China, they produce over 200 engineers in all the different fields of engineering per 100,000 of the population. In Europe, it's sitting at around 80 plus. In South Africa, we're sitting at around 13. And you can tell already that that number is very, very low to meet the demands in the market that we have. The forecast says that we need around 25 to 30,000 engineers that are coming out of university per annum, but we only really get to that number around 13, 15. And if you look at who are registered professional engineers with the ECSA, you'll find that that we've got around 18,000 registered engineers in the market. So it really is important that we look at matching what people are studying versus the market demand. And I think some of these programs don't have to be very expensive or be degrees or diplomas, etc. There are many people now that are doing a lot of digital certificates that are giving them very, very rewarding careers. Critical skills shortages exist in science, in engineering, in technology, IT fields. And so essentially what this means is you'd have to look at some of these areas here and say, what am I good at? Am I good at numbers? We also know that STEM subjects, from high school are really dropping at exponential rates. A lot of matriculants don't have pure maths when they leave matric. They have this I forget now, this maths literacy, and you can't use maths literacy for a lot of these high demand fields. And so if we look at primary education and matric, maybe we need to do something differently there in capacitating high scholars with maths and science subjects. And so that's probably one of the areas we need to look at just as a community. But also if you're listening to this, your younger siblings, your cousins and other people that are coming up behind you, make sure that they get supported with the maths and the science. It's very, very important for their future, but also for the economy. In terms of salaries, some of the realities there. So in the IT space, so cloud solutions architects can earn up to 125,000 a month. Cybersecurity analysts can start at about 50,000. which are much higher paying roles than traditional graduate roles. So that tells you where the opportunities are. Again, in South Africa, we've got this big history and disadvantage of having been in a country that that's got a political past that wasn't favorable to some groups, and so you'll find that there are structural disadvantages that prevent other people from accessing some of these high demanding or high in demand fields and roles because of where schools are and because of where the quality of education that some members of our communities in South Africa get. They are unable then to access, higher education to give them entry into the high demanding fields. And so then we find ourselves as a country in this, low skills trap, where people are studying what they can and what they can afford, not necessarily what is in demand in the market. And so we really have to look at, how we solve for this lag between what people are learning out of the institutions of higher learning and primary education versus what employers really are looking for. What does this mean for you? Just as a recap, be strategic about which field you select. Do your research. Make sure that you choose a field with high demand for growth structurally, not just your own personal interest or because popularity, my friends are doing X field or are going to study, this field, but make sure that you can match your own abilities with what is in demand in the market. Supplement your formal education. Your degree alone is insufficient. Additional skills are going to give you the competitive advantage that you so desperately need in a globally competitive environment. Wherever you can, please get practical experience whilst you are studying. Seek work integrated learning opportunities, internship programs, graduate programs, volunteer. And you'll be surprised, volunteer for an NGO, for a church, for a community group, for an old age home. Volunteer, learn some workplace skills so that you can differentiate yourself. When people ask you in the interview, tell us about a time that you dealt with a conflict. Be able to demonstrate that competency in that soft skill with a real life example. And you can sometimes only get those by seeking out practical work experience opportunities, and do your market intelligence survey. Do research in terms of what is high in demand at the moment. Okay, so now let's look at some of the human-centric capabilities that are becoming important. So essential 21st century workplace skills. We've spoken about some of them already. Digital literacy, technology partnerships, systems thinking. And when we talk about digital literacy, understanding how digital platforms work, AI applications, robotics, the Internet of Things, and how they impact your field. Before we started the session, we were just talking with the team from Unisa that, at work, almost every job is going to be impacted by the rise in our use and our adoption of AI models. I'm in human resources. Previously, I used to probably take about 2 to 3 weeks to develop a job spec that would recruit somebody in the market. Right now, with an AI language model, I can do that literally in 2 minutes. You can now imagine what that actually means for all the other activities within the human resources profession. When we have to now design an HR practitioner's job, we have to take into account that actually some of the functions that these people are required to do, or traditionally what they've done, can be done a lot more efficiently, a lot more quickly. using an AI language model. And so if you've never used, ChatGPT, you've never used Claude, you've never used Anthropic, Garmin, whatever it is that you might be using, and you don't know what the impact of that language model is going to be on your career or your field of study, you're already at a disadvantage. In this skills revolution, you need to understand how AI language models impact your role in finance. Those things can analyze large quantities of data in a very, very short space of time. And so quants as a field of study, which was a critical skill previously, I'm not sure, how it's working together with AI now to make sure that if you're a quants graduate, an Old Mutual or Sanlam or other insurer want to hire you, I don't know if those fields are now, have the same level of scarcity and criticality anymore, because we are in this digital, skills revolution. And so, really, the emphasis here is that understand how digital literacy affects your field of study and technology in general. Human-centric capabilities. The great thing about human beings is that we're able to connect with each other emotionally. And so there's never going to be an AI language model or any other technology that can replace, communication, that can replace emotional intelligence, cross-cultural competency, collaboration. And these are some of those core human centric skills or capabilities or competencies that we look at, problem solving, communication, working with other people in teams, being adaptable. The world is changing so quickly every day that if you come to work to look at your job description to add value to your employer, you're going to be left behind, because someone else is going to already be looking at, oh, what's happening in that other team on the other side of the passage, and how can I help? And when that executive on the other side sees that contribution already, the story for this person or this individual is getting all the PR it needs, in that workplace. And so you can imagine then the opportunities that are going to open up for that individual who's a lot more adaptable, a lot more agile, and who's saying, I'm here to add value more than it is looking at a job description to say, this is, what I get paid to do. That's not my job, that's your job, etc. And so all of these very, very important human-centric skills for us to think about. Again, continuous learning, and I love Unisa because it is a long-distance learning institution, lifelong learning. So we must never ever get to a point where we think that because we've got our qualification that we have stopped to learn. We have to continuously learn, upgrade our skills, remain relevant in an ever-changing world of work. Managing change, dealing with change, it's one of those skills that all employees need to have in this highly, highly agile and adaptable world. And so you're seeing that, we're seeing that a lot of people at work need to have a very high agility for learning, absorbing new information, working with new technologies, and those are the kind of employees that get ahead in the world of work and that get promoted, that get rewarded because they're able to adapt and learn and adopt new ways of working, new technologies, new skills, and to reskill themselves, so that they're able to compete effectively at work. Then on the business side, so business and innovation, I can never say this, strong enough. All businesses now look for people that can help them solve real life problems that businesses are experiencing. When we recruit graduate engineers at Hulaman, we literally give them projects that are going to make sure that by the time they finish their 2-year program, we have a new best practice that one of our graduate engineers has produced as part of their graduate program. So we produce cans, or let me say we produce components that actually make cans. So if you are a drinker of any canned beverage, the likelihood is that that's coming out of one of our production facilities. And so there's continuous improvement that we do on all of those products. So a can, you've got the body of the can, you've got the ends, the 2 ends of the can, you've got the tab that opens the can. All of those components are produced using different types of alloys. And so if you're a metallurgical engineering graduate, you would know how alloys, are mixed, what their different recipes are, etc. And so by the time that product gets produced, it needs to have met the customer specification. Sometimes the machine decides to do its own thing. Sometimes we've got, scratches, we've got defects, etc. And so our graduate engineers essentially are meant to be on, on our shop floor at the machine centers, learning our processes so that they can say, oh, okay, maybe you should adjust the recipe in this way in order for this alloy to come out the right way, for the body of the can, etc. And so they do those real life projects so that at the end of the program, they've added real value. And so when you look at yourself as well, make sure that you are that you set yourself up in that way that you're able to demonstrate that contribution and value add, understanding the business, business acumen. What's the impact that we have on the environment? We're an industrial company. Even if you're a financial business, what should your responsibilities be for the environment? How do we negotiate our contracts? What does customer service look like? Should I be worried about it as a graduate engineer? Hired in this company? Yes, all of us essentially are here to produce a product that is to a customer's specification, or else we wouldn't exist. And so we need to be able to demonstrate those skills of business innovation and entrepreneurial thinking skills in the work environment. Practical skills, we've spoken about this, again, WIL, very important. Exposure is very important. Developing a portfolio, be able to demonstrate in a portfolio of evidence what you are able to do, the tangible projects you are able to do. And also, if you're interested in an industry, be sure that you know what's happening in that industry. Read the publications, read the online publications, the hard copy publications, websites of companies that you're interested in, so that you start to understand the language and how that particular industry functions. So what does all of this mean then for you as a young professional? Firstly, skill stacking. Combine your technical expertise with the human skills we spoke about, so that you can maximize your career resilience. One or the other is not going to give you the edge. Adapt your learning strategy. In other words, make sure that you're systematically acquiring new skills throughout your career. Even when you move from one job to the next, make sure that when you leave one job, you have a portfolio of evidence that says to the new employer, this is what I can do and I can do more. Practice-oriented, development. In other words, focus on where can I apply the skill that I've just acquired, not just consuming educational content. And then lastly, differentiation through depth. So develop deep expertise in one area. So if you're a software developer, make sure that you're the best at that, but also make sure that you can maintain a broader set of competencies that can be transportable across multiple domains, industries, and roles. Look at graduate employers. What are some of their concerns in the 21st century world of work? the skills versus knowledge gap. It's a competency challenge that most companies are really struggling with when we are trying to find graduates. We spoke about this, so we're really looking for graduates that are job ready. So whatever you can do to be job ready. I know sometimes learnerships are seen as less important than graduate programs and other forms of learning, but learnerships are very, very good vehicles that allow you to practice some workplace skills and to be job ready when the professional role that you're looking for finally comes around the corner. So never underestimate those, because that's what really we're looking for in graduates. We're looking for graduates that can apply what they know. Simple, straightforward as that. And graduates that yes, are qualified, but that are going to be able to apply practically what they've learned into the workplace to add value. We've spoken about that. Importantly, also, on the softer side of things, professional behavior. It is very, very disheartening sometimes when I see young graduates who demonstrate the worst kind of professional conduct in their first job, and you wonder if they actually know the stats we spoke about, in the beginning, that a lot of people are looking for work and can't find it. And you just find people that are tardy and unserious about opportunities that they're given. So please make sure that you conduct yourself professionally. If you don't know how to, there are many places that offer professional etiquette training. How should you show up for an interview? What is the way to speak in a business meeting? How do you sit? How do you dress? All of those softer things tell us whether or not you are work ready. And network so that you understand how things are evolving real time, and make sure that you've got that you've got a clear picture of where your career path wants to lead you, and that you behave accordingly with the career path that you've chosen. Now, if I skip on to what this means for you as a young professional, bridge the readiness gap. Focus equally on professional behavior and technical skills development. Demonstrate your value early. So that portfolio of evidence will be the way for you to demonstrate that value that you can add early. Develop meta skills. So in other words, emphasize learning how to learn and adapt rather than just acquiring static knowledge. Learning how to learn is quite an important thing because it tells us that the knowledge you have can evolve and can be applied in different contexts to get the best value from it. Integrate soft skills and hard skills together. So combine your technical expertise with some strong human-centric behavior that we spoke about earlier on, so that when you present yourself to an employer, they can see that there's a balance between what you can do technically and how you then execute technically. A quick example, I've been trying to assist one of our teams at work to be a lot more optimal in how they work. They were experiencing some challenges around team dynamics, and it was predominantly because the engineer in charge, as much as he was great technically, but on the people and relationship side, there was a lot of lack there. And so you were finding that, as much as he can get all his KPIs right, he was doing it at a great expense of relationships that he actually needs to make him a lot more effective as a leader. And so that's a classic example of someone that is great technically, but that that is struggling on the softer side of things, team relationships, in a way that was then disabling him from being a lot more effective as a leader. And so it really is quite important that you make sure that you don't focus only on the technical skills that you need for your profession. Okay, now we are on the home stretch. If I look at this skills revolution, Why is it important for anyone to be worried, or why is navigating it important for us? Firstly, automation impact. So between almost 0 and 30% of hours worked globally could be automated by 2030. And that means that there's going to be massive workplace transformations. There are very few organizations that I don't know that are not restructuring how they work because of the impact of automation. We can automate a lot of the work that is getting manually done by people in the next 5 years. The pace at which technology is moving is, I know we've been speaking about the pace of technology for the last 10 years, but I think we are now at that space where it really is, it's phenomenal. And so by the time that we get to 2030, a lot of the skills, competencies may be out of date that we need in 5 years' time. The concept of work has fundamentally shifted, evolved since COVID. We know this. And three major trends shaping the world, the future of work and skills. Demographics are shifting, technological change, and the globalization of the economy. As I said, you're competing now with the whole world when you're looking for a job. Why are traditional career models obsolete? We're at that point where we can no longer reverse some of the trends that we're seeing. And so this thing of a lifetime career, that concept no longer exists. Your career is as good as you are adaptable and you are relevant to the job market, which is why the continuous learning is so important. Even as training departments and companies, we really are struggling to keep up with all the new skills we need for our employees to reskill themselves on. And sometimes the one overtakes the other, and roles become obsolete very quickly. There are a lot of disruptions in how business currently is conducted. So many industries that are new, that are coming up, that are providing a lot of employment. There's what we call now green jobs, which are ESG roles. So roles that are concerned with sustainability, environment, and also governance and ethics. And a lot of the times now, what we're finding is that organizations are really boundaryless, and so you'll find that we're working mostly in matrix and network organizations more than it is hierarchical structures. And so the way we look at career development is no longer in a linear way, but it's more like a maze. What skills do you have, whether they are lateral skills or vertical skills, because you need a combination of both to get ahead in your career. All right, if we look at the South African context of the skills revolution, in South Africa, cultural bias is still a very important factor for us. Academic over vocational qualifications, just based on how our education system is structured, are still a challenge in adapting to this skills revolution that's going on around the world. The acceleration of digital skills or digital fields is widening, and we all know that our country, as much as we are quite technologically advanced, there's still some areas that are not as well developed. People still don't have access to data. In some countries, data is as free as air. And so you find that in South Africa, people are still excluded from some of the digital opportunities because they live in remote areas, there is no data, or data is very expensive. And industrial or industry collaboration needed. So we do need to make sure that we can match what industry or the market needs versus what in the higher education systems we are producing. Jobs are just no longer, meant to be office-based, nice office, aircon, etc. But it's really more about skills that are needed to industrialize and to make us a lot more productive across sectors. What are some of the benefits to successfully navigate the skills revolution? It's that you are going to be differentiated. You can demand or attract a premium, and your earning potential would increase. Job opportunities are going to be in new jobs. And so the more adaptable, the more resilient your portfolio of evidence is, the higher your chances of accessing new job opportunities that are coming up. Retention value, when we restructure a company and some jobs become redundant, your retention value will be higher when your skills are a lot more relevant and adaptable to an employer. If you remain with the same skill set for 5 years in this day and age, you're probably going to be the first person to get retrenched when the company restructures. Again, global mobility, which we spoke about earlier on. What happens if we don't navigate successfully is that there's going to be this displacement risk. So not having the relevant job or the skills that's required in the industry. And so then you're going to find that you are displaced as a person or as a professional in your career. The effects of climate change, interestingly, and I spoke about green jobs, are affecting how we look at jobs in South Africa. And so climate impact having quite a significant impact in South African, in the South African job market. And then, of course, career stagnation. Nobody wants to be stagnant in their career. And so continuous learning, very, very important, either yourself, self-driven, or through some kind of professional development program. But all of us need to continuously improve our skills. Just this morning, I was learning data analysis and Power BI application because I can no longer rely on the IT department to help me analyze, talent data that I need. And right now, I don't know if there's a system in the market that is cost effective enough for me to buy to do that. And so you can see that continuously, all of us have to think about how can we add value. So instead of me as a manager of OD or talent in the company, instead of me going and saying, I need 2 million to buy a system, I can actually go and say, I'll save 2 million because I know how to analyze data. That is the kind of value we're talking about adding. So finally, as we get to kind of the end of our talk, so what does this mean for a young professional? Be proactive and be adaptable. Take control of your own development. Have a continuous learning mindset. Strategically position yourself in areas that are in high demand, but don't forget, again, to combine the technical and the human-centric skills. Be a builder of relationships and make sure that your own personal brand goes ahead of you to create and open doors for you, and have a global perspective because your skill set is competing in the global space. And so, in conclusion, there are realities that affect career success in today's skills revolution. Market reality recognition, skills over credentials, continuous adaptation imperative, human AI partnership. We all have to embrace and accept that we are in the AI age, and we have to find a way to embrace it and integrate it into our own professional and personal development. And so if we look at, what would success or a framework for success look like for you when you've applied or successfully navigated the skills revolution? If you look at it, if you're strategic in the field you've selected, your earning potential will be higher. If you're able to do the skills integration, combining your technical and your human-centric skills, you're going to stand out and be ahead. When you come along with a demonstration of this is what I can actually do on top of the qualification that I have, and so I have done some work to bridge the gap between my education, formal education, and what you as an employer are looking for. And also, I've got great relationships, and so I'm able to leverage those relationships in order for me to get ahead. And so I think that really is, the talk around how do you navigate, the 2025 plus era of skills, of the skills revolution, and what are the advantages of navigating it successfully. We know we've got an economic growth challenge or crisis in South Africa, but it also presents, opportunities. It's just really how we strategically position ourselves as graduates, as university students, as young professionals, in how we can, create that advantage for ourselves. Personal agency, it's important. Don't expect your employer to do the career plan for you. Have your career plan already in place by the time you join an employer. And as much as the things might look gloomy, but by 2025, 2030, in the next 5 years, there will be a whole host of new jobs and new skills required. And so the better you are keeping track of what's going on around this, and the better you are at aligning yourself with the new roles, new jobs that may crop up in the market, the better you're going to be, and your competitive advantage is going to be improved significantly, and you'll be globally competitive as well in this ever-changing job market. And so I think that's how we conclude our talk. I know it was a little bit long, but I think there are many, many dimensions to look at when we're talking about skills. My message to you is be proactive, have personal agency. Don't let our South African economic outlook discourage you from positioning yourself as the best candidate for an employer who's looking for work-ready graduates. And so if you do that, I think you stand a better chance of establishing yourself as a young professional where you're going. Thank you very much. I think we'll end it there, and we can take some comments, questions, and
Thank you so much, Ronnie. As I'm sitting here, I was feeling a bit overwhelmed in terms of, I would guess, the personal responsibility that I have, to manage my skills and develop my skills. But let's take a look at some of the questions in the chat. I'm also going to open up the microphones. So if you would like to ask Ronnie a question live, you're welcome to raise your hand. And we will then give you a chance to ask your question. So let me do that quickly. Okay. So one of the first questions, you spoke about the issue of a portfolio. So there's a question about if you could explain or maybe provide examples on how would one go about creating such a portfolio?
okay. Okay, great question. So maybe let me take an example of someone that's done, let's call it design, graphic design. As a graphic design graduate, you probably would have learned a number of design languages. I don't know which ones these days that they teach in the graphic design schools. Let's say Adobe or maybe Python or C++, and those are your languages that you come out of university with. So when you do your research in terms of graphic design entry-level jobs, you need to look at, in terms of the technical requirements, how close a match are you with the languages that you have? And do you have a demonstrated application of having used any of those? And then what are the gaps? So the portfolio of evidence would be, okay, I've got 3 languages. Ordinarily, they're looking for for around 5 languages. I still have 2 to go, so I need to find a way to learn those 2 languages. But the 3 that I have, what projects in my portfolio of evidence do I have that can demonstrate that I know how to use, let's say, Acrobat or Adobe as an example, and I can also demonstrate the level of proficiency at which I can apply that particular language, and so that is what then building your portfolio of evidence starts to look like. If you're in marketing, if, as an example, they say they need someone that has done a marketing plan or a communication strategy, you then volunteer for your local NGO or for your local church, and you say, okay, I'm gonna do a annual, calendar for all the activities, all the events, all the conferences that we're going to have in church this year. Already you are building a portfolio of having created a communication plan of sorts. It becomes part of your portfolio of evidence. You can even say, guys, I think our logo in this church or in this NGO is outdated. Let me design a new logo for everybody. We can roll it out. Already that is part of your volunteering, but you are building a portfolio of evidence. You are not sitting there with your marketing or graphics design qualification saying, I'm waiting for my first job so that I can show them what I can do. You are saying, I will demonstrate what I can do before I get the real job that I want, so that when that job knocks on my door, I can produce my portfolio of evidence and say, here it is. I hope that helps.
And I think so, Ronnie, just on a like quite practical level, there are so many online platforms where you could start building this portfolio of evidence. So I'm thinking about, for example, one way is to use your LinkedIn profile as a way of displaying the skills that you are developing. You could, for example, use online design tools like Canva. So
Yep.
you could build your own website. There are many no-code tools available now that make it quite easy. So I'm not sure, are there any other ways that you can think of to then, I would say professionally build this portfolio of evidence?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, the world is, so Moodle, it's one of the other areas that people can explore. It's online, it's free. You can practically learn anything on there. But even the cost-effective, non-expensive platforms like YouTube teach you quite a lot. And they teach you, practical application of skills. You'll be surprised just how much is there for every single profession that exists. And so I think outside of, their formal education and things that you must pay for or get a license for, there are many, many online platforms today that people can access that can give them the added advantage. When you are in a job already, many companies now will have edX, they will have Udemy, they will have all sorts of skills that the company has already paid a license for, that you just need to subscribe into and start building your portfolio of evidence whilst you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And also the professional bodies as well. So if you are in finance or in engineering or any of those, you'll find that there is continuous professional development opportunities that your particular profession will offer, where you can also have an opportunity to network with leaders within that industry. When you attend the events, when you attend courses, sometimes they are free for members, sometimes they are half price for members, etc. So there are many ways that you can achieve this continuous learning and lifelong education process.
What you mentioned now, there is a question about, is it better to combine both studied skills and varsity qualifications to better your employment chances? So, for example, if you are studying at the moment, you are not employed currently, There are many of these platforms that Ronnie also now mentioned that offer free courses, and even, as you said, YouTube, for example. But I think what you mentioned earlier as well is that it's important that as you are doing these additional courses or you're learning new skills, to keep a record of those skills, to see how you can use those skills to start solving those real world problems that will be valuable for future employers.
Yes, 100%. So
Okay.
I think what we're saying is that your qualification that's coming out of formal education is important, but on its own, it is not going to give you the competitive advantage. You need to be able to build a portfolio of additional skills that can be applied, in the world of work almost immediately, so that if a graduate employer is or an employer is looking for an entry level skill, they're able to really be comfortable that, oh, okay, this person might have a year of experience or no experience at all, but they seem to be able to, they seem to have skills that can be applied almost immediately, which means that, their time to efficiency in a role, in a job, will be a lot more quicker, and we get, the return on investment quite quick. So that's really the positioning that all of us should think about.
Mm. Ronnie, there's a question here specifically about, excuse me, what jobs in healthcare are in high demand or that has shortages. But I've got a more general question that would also maybe answer this. As you are now sitting and thinking about developing your skills, looking out for industries or job fields that are in high demand, what are some of the practical ways that one could go about finding out that information?
Yeah, so the World Economic Forum is quite a good resource. Their website has got quite a lot of information about most countries around the world, and every year they produce a report called Future Skills report. So you'll see that I've actually referenced it in quite a number of the slides here. They've got the latest one. So if you go on weforum.org, you should be able to find a detailed report. It will tell you, industry by industry, and also tell you, field by field, where the opportunities are, including, health sciences or healthcare.
Yeah, so the World Economic Forum, and I guess, since they update it quite frequently and they've got more like data that they are using to kind of make predictions about
Yeah,
the future trends. Yeah. One of
100%.
the ways that we also, recommend to students quite a lot is the importance of also, being part of or talking to people, networking in the industry or the organization or the career field that you're interested in, because that would also then help you to get an understanding of, what kind of qualifications, what kind of skills are needed, and how could I start developing those while I am still busy with my qualification.
Yes, 100%. And that's why, if you are in one of those, fields that are governed, through a professional body or one of those industry umbrella bodies, it's really important to be a part of that community, because a lot of learning happens there, sharing happens there. They do networking events, sometimes quarterly. So in that process, you are at least, starting to build your network, and so when opportunities come up, you will be most likely in the right place at the right time, talking to the right person, and that might give you, access. But again, additionally, they also have, continuous professional development, and so you can find that, as a young engineer or as a young professional in HR, if you join any of the professional bodies in that field, that you can enter as a technician, and there's a progression and a kind of a career progression that says, as an entry level professional in this sector, this is what you need to know at the next level. This is what you need to know, at a professional master level, etc. That's what you need to know, and so you can build, your competency levels as you move up the ranks in that ladder of professional development.
Mm. Ronnie, there was just a question from Jabulesile. If we could just remind him of those different online platforms. We spoke about YouTube. You also mentioned edX and Coursera. Are there any other platforms that you are aware of that we could recommend?
So Udemy is one of them.
Okay. And then I'm also aware that on both Microsoft as well as Google, they have education sites as part of their main websites, where often there are free courses available, especially with digital upskilling.
Yes.
So I'll just post that in the chat here.
Yeah. So Udemy, edX, Udacity, there are quite a few that you can find online, but also open universities and Moodle. Those are quite useful. Some of them run formal qualifications, and you only have to pay at the time that you believe you're ready to be assessed, and it's an online, and you can still get a qualification in that way. But yeah, there's quite a lot. If you just go online and you type learning platforms, some of them are free, some of them you might need to pay a small subscription fee.
Yeah. Just by the way, Unisa, as do many other South African as well as international universities, have got free courses available normally as part of the MOOC offerings. So if you look for open courses on different university websites, you will also be able to find further skills development opportunities.
Yes, MOOC is a very, very, very nice platform as well.
Yeah. There was also just a comment, I think it was in relation to when you were speaking about the high demand opportunities. Nontle commented that one needs to start quite early to save for the qualifications that provide better paying jobs, because the study fees are no joke.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think the tragedy sometimes is that I don't think that at high school level, we're doing sufficient career guidance and career planning, so that high scholars really come out of high school with a firm idea of what to study. Sometimes people finish matric with no idea what they are going to study post matric, and I think that is really one of the most tragic things in life. An example I can use as an example, artisans that we are in desperate need and in short supply of, is that if I'd known earlier, I would absolutely encourage all high scholars to try and leave high school with maths and science, because with maths and science there's almost no profession you can't go into after that. But if you already decide I'm going a commercial stream, or you already are excluding yourself from other potential career fields that are there. And so I think for me, would rather spend time improving the skills, maths, science, technology, engineering skills at a high school level, than saying people must do maths literacy because it's easier to do, and you're going to get your certificate. We really have to go back as far as high school, grade 7, 8, 9, so that we can make sure that we build a proper pipeline for the rest of what we need across all the industries in South Africa.
Mm. It is quite important. And I also think that, especially with maths and science, those are quite intimidating subjects.
Yeah.
So, even if you, for example, did not complete those subjects at school level, again, it would be a matter of, how are you trying to reposition yourself, especially if you've already got a number of years of workplace experience. You can see all of these changes coming. What are the opportunities that you can start utilizing to either pivot to another direction or then just to add skills. As you said, that would just make you more flexible in terms of aligning yourself to many different opportunities. So personally, I believe that it's never too late. Don't be deterred by maybe traumatic experiences that you had in the past.
No, absolutely. And I think all of us have got our fair share stories to tell about maths and science, eh?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Is there anybody that would want to ask a question? You're welcome to raise your hand and unmute your microphone. As you can hear, it's a very informal conversation. There's no right or wrong questions to ask. Remember, if you ask, you are also helping everybody else watching this as well as the recording later.
Thank you. Afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to know how does one get funding for further studies? I'm currently in my final year at Unisa, studying marketing management, and I would like to pursue honors next year, either at Unisa or UJ. I don't know if I'm late in looking for bursary options. I wanted to know if you guys know any.
Thanks for the question, Kwano. Ronnie, maybe just, I don't think you'd be able to answer specifically, but maybe also in general talking about, as you're thinking maybe about postgraduate studies, what are some of the options that one could go, a way of finding funding, but maybe you won't necessarily qualify for traditional study funding. So what are some creative ways one could go about that process?
sure. Yeah, look, it's quite a conundrum that, hey, funding, because education is quite expensive. Maybe one of the first things to say, in terms of bursaries, you see, bursaries a lot of the time are available in the high demand fields. So healthcare, engineering, technology, finance. So it's quite difficult, I think, to access bursary funding when you're not in a scarce or a critical skill. And so that's one of the, I think, issues that we currently find we face as employers. So I think the first thing is the opportunities for funding might be very low for a marketing qualification because it's not considered a scarce or a critical skill, unfortunately. But then again, the other way to make yourself a lot more employable is that portfolio of evidence, as we discussed. Most companies open their bursary applications around this time, between now and October, and then they will close, and this will be funding for 2026. So I'm sure if you were to go online and look for bursary, funding opportunities, you may find a few that could be open already, or ones that are going to open from next month in August, etc. Again, maybe a question might be, should I go immediately into honors? That is always a contentious question, but my personal view, and this is a personal view, is that go get to work as quickly as soon as you can. And I know it's not always possible. And if work doesn't come, yes, it's better to be in a study program than just idle. So my advice would be, as soon as you can, get to work and study part-time, because what you're doing there is you are getting your formal qualification together with workplace application. And as we've seen, that combination puts you at a much higher advantage than just having qualifications or being book smart.
Thank you, Ronnie. So just from the Unisa side, I will share the contact or the website for the Department of Student Funding. So there are some bursary opportunities or funding available for Unisa students. And then also encourage you to attend the Virtual Grad Expo that I will also share information about. Okay, thanks for the question, Kutano. Is there anybody else that would want to ask a question before we end? We are almost there. Okay, I don't think I see any further hands. I would want to just share a few announcements before we end off the session. If you think about any questions while I'm reading the announcement, please feel free to post it in the chat. Thanks, Kotwani, for the comment that you did consider work and study options. Thank you for the input. But again, as I said, thank you for your question. Okay, so just a couple of resources that I want to share with you. The first one is called the PNet Grad Pack. So this resource, as well as the next one that I'm going to show you, are free books that you can download. The first one is this PNet Grad Pack on the PNet website. And then the second resource is called the Grad Next book. And both of these publications have a lot of information about how to manage your whole job search process. But beyond that, also looking at aspects around personal branding, even financial management, starting your own business, etc. So I would really encourage you, if you would want to go and read more and get more tips about this process of job searching, these two books are very valuable. Then I mentioned earlier the Virtual Grad Expo, so you can still register for the expo. The live event will take place on Tuesday, the 29th of July, so that's next week. Basically, the platform would allow you to explore career information, but also then apply for opportunities. And these opportunities could be ranging from bursaries and scholarships, but there are also organizations having opportunities available for work experience as well as graduate programs. So there are three general, what they call pavilions or spaces on the Virtual Grad Expo, with focus on more general degrees, but then also specifically for accounting and law and STEM and engineering. So I will also post the link in the chat so that you could go and register for it. And then on the 29th, the different organizations will be online. You will be able to ask them questions. There will also be webinars during which companies will share information about those opportunities. Then our next events upcoming on Monday next week, we've got a topic around understanding multi-generational differences in the workplace. We also have on the next day, the 29th of July, an event specifically for agriculture and environmental science students. But even if you are not currently in that field, it might still be interesting to hear about the different opportunities available. Ronnie spoke earlier, for example, about the whole issue around green careers. So you will definitely be able to find out more about that. And then on the 31st of July, next Thursday, there is a session about igniting career opportunities with LinkedIn. So a practical session during which you will learn more about how to optimize your LinkedIn profile, but also how to use the platform effectively for networking. And then finally, from our side, if you want to reach out for support, so the Directorate for Counselling and Career Development, we offer career, academic, as well as personal development support. You can send us an email to counselling@unisa.ac.za. You could also make online appointments on Microsoft Teams, or then contact a counsellor at the nearest Unisa regional office. And then our website, as well as our YouTube channel, have a lot of resources that you can use to help you navigate your career development, but also your academic and personal development. So on that note, I'm going to ask Mandu if you could please end off the session for us. And while you're doing that, I'm also just going to post the links to the different resources, as well as a evaluation form. So we would appreciate it if you can give us some feedback about this session, since it helps us to put together the right content for you to support you in terms of your career development. Thank you, Mandu.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, once again. I just want to take this opportunity to express our gratitude as the Directorate for Counselling and Career Development at Unisa, and to thank Mr. Ronnie Mulaudzi for his time and his unwavering support to our career development initiatives. And thank you so much, Ronnie, for taking us through the issues that are so burning in the recruitment space, but as well as the space of our graduates and young people at large, not even just young people, even matured people, because I would like to believe that Unisa serves different generations, from young to middle-aged to senior people. But I feel like the information and all the insights that you shared today, they were cutting across all age groups. And I think for those who are still young, who are still in high school or who have just started, what they should be mindful of. I liked the comment of one of our attendees who said and one should start early with these with the consideration of going into fields that are on demand and taking into account the finances that are required for this field. So that the information that you shared, it did cut across all ages, starting from entry level one is studying to exit level, what we should be mindful of. But even for those who are already in employment, not to be complacent and comfortable in their own positions and spaces, because the fast pace of changes that are taking place, not only in our context as a country, but globally in terms of the workplace and outside the workplace, that are affecting our careers, are so serious that one needs to reevaluate all the time, upskill, as you suggested. And there are so many suggestions that you brought across in terms of how we can upskill and reskill ourselves. And I was also thinking that this information is also for those who are in their senior stages in organizations or in employment, to begin to think about what is the next step when one goes into retirement, because I feel that the nature of our environment these days doesn't accommodate just inactive retirement, but it demands active retirement where skills can be transferred, wisdom can be transferred. But how are we going to do that without relearning, reskilling, as well as being people who are going into retirement? How are we going to occupy the space of retirement in influencing our nation, or even in the whole world? So thank you so much for your insights, and we know that this is not the last time, and we always appreciate the fact that you do not waste a space in your presentation. And for that reason, we just want to say thank you. And I also want to say thank you to all of you who made it a point that you attend this session. We hope that you have learned a lot. And thank you to Lisa, who has run this program so well. And over to you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mandu. Kutwano, I just want to check, is that a historic hand, or did you have another follow-up question before we end the session? Okay, I'll take it that it's a historic hand, but I've shared all the links to the different resources that I shared, as well as our contact details. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And we hope it's also not the last time that we see you on this platform. And we wish you all the best with your studies. Thank you.